All right, the Reds, it's the second look after Liverpool drew 1-1 with Arsenal at the weekend. Myself, Gareth Roberts, Paul Cope and Rob Gutmann, we've just been having a bit of a mess about how we take the Anfield up to the next level. I mean, would you want to see Rob in the bath or things like that? Let us know what it would cost. Ignore me. Come on, we're going to do the serious stuff. The second look. Arsenal 1, Liverpool 1.
No pixelations of crotches.
No pixelation of crotches. This was all stemming from, this is Red and White Cop's fault on their forum. The discussion on there about the Anfield app is absolutely wild. If you've never seen it, get on there and have a look. Anyway, okay, Arsenal 1, Liverpool 1. Liverpool's still unbeaten then. They played 4 Big Six clubs now in just 11 games. 3 of them away, Spurs, Chelsea and Arsenal. 27 points out of 33, 2 wins out of 3 in the Champions League as well, and yet loads of heads are falling off again, Rob. Is your head falling off, or are you all right with a point away to Arsenal?
It's not falling off, but it's a bit wobbly. We just all want to win the league so badly, don't we? We just really do want to win the league so badly, and we're coming into the season with some really good new signings. We're near Champions League winners. We played some amazing stuff last season. And we're winning football matches. I'm thinking where the downside of where the sentence is going to end. But it doesn't really feel like we've played a whole good football match yet this season. Yeah. Arguably, Red Star, but then the caveat is that PSG had thumped them in the previous game. I enjoyed the West Ham on the first day, but apart from that, we've had patches in games, like Tottenham maybe in the second half, but not really been convincing. And there's been quite a number of games where you say we haven't played at all well in the course of a game. Now, this is not playing well at a high level to draw with a good Arsenal side who've got 11 wins out of 12. So it's another case of, hey, it would be crazy to beat ourselves up over this. And yet, I'd like some signs that we're going to burst into life and stay being very, very good. Because you think if we get to that stage, then watch us go.
Well, Klopp said, Copey, a point at Arsenal will always be a good result. So we take that and move on. Liverpool unbeaten in the open 11 matches for the first time since 2007-8. But go on, where are you on it? Are you good cop or bad cop?
A bit of both, to be honest. And I know, even the stuff I said last week after the Cardiff game, there were some people saying, it's overly negative, and I genuinely don't think it is. I think there's a tendency in football, I've said this for a long time now, that everyone just goes off whatever the result is. So if you win 4-1, therefore that is good and you can't complain about it. But this goes back to something I used to talk with Sean about on the review, I remember when we beat Watford 6-1, and something Sean was saying was, we weren't ruthless enough. We should have scored 12 that day. And loads of people just can't get their heads around that. But this is where you see the problem with that. If you continue to play poorly, as Rob's saying, if when you're playing Cardiff, you look like you're struggling even though you win 4-1, when you come into games like this that you could win, like Arsenal were good, but we could have won this if we'd have played well. We didn't really play well, and we still feel like we're a bit hard done by getting a draw. Then it's all in the context of, do you want to win the league? If that's what we want to do, well, we all have to just be honest and say Man City have completely moved the goalposts in all of this. Yeah. And is Klopp right that a point at Arsenal is always a good result? Maybe for the last 100 years of league football, yes. Is he right in a season when Man City are probably going to get 100 points again, or have got a good chance of getting 100 points again? Well, a point at Arsenal isn't a good result if it's a game where you could have won if you'd have played better, and if you want to win the league. Now, if you're saying, no, we just want to finish second and we want to progress on last time, we want to get more points, and we want to... One of the things that always comes up is, this is the best we've done since X date. Well, we haven't won the league since 1990. So, and then that was in a completely different context. I saw Keown and Ferdinand talking about stuff like this after the United game. Things have changed. Like
we won the league with 79 points then.
Exactly. Well, there was a
did we?
Yeah. There was a stat on
42 games as well.
No, it's 38. Don't ask me these questions, but I'm pretty sure it's 38.
Well, did you see? There was this thing on. I think it was match of the day.
Points, I know that.
The only other time in the history of the Football League that the top 3 clubs were unbeaten after 11 games was, I think, 78-79, and us and Everton were 1 and 2. But we had back then. We had nowhere near the points we had now. I think we had 21 points and we were top of the league, and we've got 27 now, and we're third. So that's how much it's changed. Raised, yeah. So it's all well and good, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be one saying, this is all terrible, and at the end of the day, we're third in the league, we're doing really well, we've had a tough fixture list, we're doing this despite not playing well. But in the context of competing with City to win the league, I'm not sure a point at Arsenal is enough.
Well, in terms of the statistics, we always do these at the start of this show. Ball possession across the 90 minutes, or the 90 minutes plus, was 61% to Arsenal, 39 to Liverpool. They had 12 shots in total, Liverpool had 13. Both teams had 4 on target, both teams had 5 off target, etc, etc. Liverpool had more corner kicks, they had more offsides. 2 big chances statistically each. We talked about that before, about how that's measured and stuff like that. Liverpool have 10 shots inside the box to Arsenal's 9. It's a bit of a mad one that it ends up 1-1 really when you start to look at these stats. But when you break it down as well, what's interesting, Rob, is that first half it seems a bit closer in terms of possession. But then second half, Arsenal have got a lot more of the ball, 66% in the second half, and yet Liverpool are having more shots in the second half, almost like that was always the plan. And when you look at the sort of the comments since and stuff like that, the idea is it wasn't working in the first half and it was much better in the second. So the possession thing's not always a thing we should be, bigging up massively, is it? We have 80% possession against Cardiff the week before. Which, so it underlines the different, the managements have got different tasks week by week, haven't they? Because the league's so mad. The top 6 are so far and away from the rest of them, if you like. And I see a lot of people saying that over the weekend, obviously with City, Tonkin, Southampton, etc.
Yeah, the thing about possession, it's not how big it is, it's what you do with it that counts, ladies.
This is the premium Rob Gutmann.
This is the platinum package. But what we say? We get 80-odd% against Cardiff, but nobody was very satisfied with the performance. So the correlation isn't there. The possession. What that possession does tell a story of is that Liverpool didn't gain control in that football match, I don't think, at any stage. We did create some good quality chances. If you watch just the highlights back with the 10 minutes on LSE TV package, which is always it's usually a useful reminder. But you watch it back, I think it's a bit deceptive. We have some quality chances. I mean, Klopp jokes about Van Dijk's near hat-trick, and they're fucking unbelievable chances, especially the one at his feet. There's the Mane goal that's disallowed, and a few other scrambles in the box. But I sat there behind that goal watching it, thinking, when are we going to be Liverpool here? We didn't feel angry enough out of possession for me. There didn't seem a desire to get back on the ball. I couldn't see much that approached pressing from us. The game seemed to be about Arsenal. I mean, it's a sign of our quality that we were able to still influence. It's a sign of our quality that we were able to go and get a goal first in the game. But, Man, you were sort of saying this after their win at Bournemouth, where they were a bit crap, but they still had the quality to come back and win the thing. We've talked about City setting an unrealistic pace, and they are making and changing the whole game. But my bigger fear is, forget City, it's about us. I just want us, if you can give me 89 points now, I'm taking 89 points and may the heavens fall in terms of whatever City end up with. I'm not yet sure we're on a course to get 89 points despite the points we've got so far because of performances that are very inconsistent like this.
But do you not think that, we're still talking about clicking again, we're still talking about ruthlessness, aren't we? And, you see, from our perspective, that goal's a bit heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's a good finish. He deserves credit, like I said. Equally, though, at the other end, Mo, when all he has to do with teams is play that pass to Salah, and he can't do it. And it's like, you should have that in your locker, and at some point in the season, surely you do. And surely, all of a sudden, Liverpool will get ruthless again. And yet, so we've got a good base then to be ruthless in the future, surely.
Yeah, it's a bit funny, this. I listened to Neil on some shows last week talking about City and the comparisons and stuff, and people... And I fall into this trap as well. We talk about Man City being on course to get 100 points as if we're not on course to get 100 points.
Well, we're on course for 93, aren't we? If you're going statistically, and they're on course for 100.
Well, off the back of the weekend just gone. But before that, we're on exactly the same points as them. And yet we were still talking like, well, they're going to get 100 points and we're not. And I think that for me is the bit where I still feel like we fall short of it, and this is in the fan base and through the management, is that I love talking about Ferguson and United because, for me, when you want to do something in life, model the people who've done it the best in the past, whether it's your rivals or not. Alex Ferguson did not care about getting draws. He didn't. When he figured out how to win leagues, he would risk losing a draw to get a win. And if you look at the league table now, someone said to me at the weekend, have you seen where Spurs are? Spurs are 3 points behind us. They've lost 3 games. They've been beaten 3 times by rivals as well, and they're only 3 behind us. Why? Because we've drawn 3. And getting 3 draws is not that great. So I think we need to get to a point where if we want to win the league, if that is the target, you have to, from a whole club perspective, starting games like Arsenal. I mean, I
This is because you're fuming about Matip, isn't it?
I'm furious about it.
That's sub.
Well, yeah, completely. Well, the Salah thing happens not long before that when the whole conversation about this game changes completely if he pulls off a fairly simple pass. And that's happened time and time again this year. But then, and I think you can see this in Salah's face, when he's subbed in that moment for Matip, we're not playing against the team here where they're going to start bombarding long balls into our box. And yeah, people said to me, Trent had a bad game. All right, there's only 2 minutes left. Really, he's going to cost us in the next 2 minutes. Salah's face sort of said as he was coming off, are you messing? Aren't we trying to win this game and you're bringing me off? And I think that's where we've almost got to shift our attitude again now to unbeaten is all well and good, but it's winning games that win you to the league. And yeah, build that on a tight defence as we've talked about in the past. But you've got to roll the dice a little bit more for me.
I sometimes think psychologically that we're not built to lose games as readily as Tottenham.
I think that's a good point. And this is where I could imagine Klopp coming back to me if he was in this conversation saying, that's all well and good, mate, but we drew and all your heads have fallen off. So what happens if we get beat? Yeah. And that's why I think it's... Yeah. I think we're developing as a fan base and as a club, but there's another level to go yet before we get there.
And this is why Tottenham finish ahead of us. Because when they get to the point they know they can't win the league, they go, sound. Yeah. We'll just be finishing...
Yeah. It's such a thing for us, isn't it?
Yeah. Or if we know we're in danger of not finishing 4th, we finish 8th.
Yeah.
They'll finish 5th. Or maybe just keep on course and finish. Yeah, our heads go. Yeah. And this is what I fear a little bit about this season. We built ourselves with such expectation here. And I don't know, in a way, do you know the strange thing is? When we got to this stage last season, maybe give or take a game, was when we got beaten 4-1 at Spurs, funnily enough. And all heads had gone there. We were doing shows where some people were talking about how long Klopp might last at Liverpool by then. It was really... In fact, you were one of them. You were bloody Nevin. Hi, mate. So that sort of stuff was going on then. We were sort of in crisis, but you know what? It doesn't feel like our form is that different now till then. And but at that stage last season, I felt, looking at it from the other way, is that, yeah, but we're still good, aren't we? That's the thing I'm still holding on.
We're 8 points better off now than
we were even
at the same stage.
Even at Park, all that, you go, this is a football team. It's a good football team with 3 amazing attackers. They're not suddenly crap. They've mainly got a lot of goals still between them this season. The midfield's a bit not in disarray, but it hasn't found its right balance yet. And the defence is off the charts better than it was last season. You put those things together, and the goalie, of course, you put those things together and you go, there should be a decent run in this Liverpool side. I mean, we've had a decent run. Do you know what I mean? We're contradicting ourselves and going back and forth. There's no logic, but it's hard to find a logic in all this.
Well, if you picture Klopp in this conversation, again, this just occurred to me now, that Klopp might say, I agree with all of this, but the difference is you're all wanting to win the league now, but you've wanted to win the league now since I came in. This season for me is get 89, 90 points.
That's progress.
That's our progress season. Progress, yeah. And then we add to this squad again, because we all know actually the squad is the squad, but it's still, I mean, we're going to talk about Fabinho, I'm sure, but it's still not like City. City's lose Kev De Bruyne and they don't even blink. They're not bothered. They still go out and roll someone over 6-1. We're still in that middle ground. So Klopp could say to us, yeah, like, I don't expect us to get 100 points this season. We'll get 90. If we get 90 this season, what a season that is. If City still win the league, fair play to them. We'll build again the season after. That's the whole point.
There's loads to talk about tactically from this game against Arsenal. So Neil's going to do just that with his tactics board now.
It's no battle or laughs playing centre mid for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. There was probably a time back around 16-17 where maybe, just maybe, it was the more straightforward position to play on the pitch. The run of the 16-17 season sees Liverpool have at times Chan and Lucas play as the deepest two in quite a traditional sort of 4-2-3-1. But in big games at the end of last season, we saw that Liverpool's midfield in this 4-3-3 would firstly have a lot of work to do, but secondly, the work they would do would be so important. We've got to acknowledge this. We've got to acknowledge that we've created this situation. The manager has created this situation for this football team. Part of it is because of the personnel. And what I mean by that isn't about the midfielders, it's about Mo Salah. Mo Salah wants to play as a right-sided forward. That's where we'll get the best we can out of Mo Salah. That's what we need to have. So whereas at the back end of 16-17, if everyone was fit, you could have Coutinho tucking in off the left, Mane able to play relatively traditionally as a right-sided player. Now you've got the Mo Salah phenomenon, and that's really important. This isn't an argument to say we should ever change that. We very much shouldn't. I like to see Salah come off the right. But what we then saw against Arsenal was that Arsenal had the ability to target our left-hand side. And as part of that, the midfield three then comes into play. But it isn't as simple as it just being shuffling from left to right. There's a need for every single one of those three players in that shape to do much more than you'd expect from a normal central midfielder. And Fabinho struggled. He struggled because, well, I'll take you right the way back. Chelsea away. After the home game where Fabregas sat deep and we never really got that close to him, the first thing that happens in the away game when we go to Stamford Bridge is Jordan Henderson breaks from the deepest line midfield position and charges at Jorginho, comes all the way up there, all the way up the pitch to make Jorginho's life difficult, to let him know the game that he's in for. It happens, as I say, in the first 60 seconds of the game. What that was what Jurgen Klopp wants from this player. The idea that you can go this way and this way, but go this way as well. And what Liverpool's side needs is for the entire side to move as a complete shape. So Mo Salah does not have that much defensive responsibility off the right-hand flank, and Arsenal knew that. Aubameyang cheated off the left all day, and fair play to him. It takes real courage to do that. He was often the wrong side of Alexander-Arnold, giving Alexander-Arnold a problem. Ozil wants to come over into here. Mkhitaryan then comes over into here. And Liverpool find themselves in a situation where they're not really effectively pressing the two holding midfielders, but with Fabinho going there, and nor are they working across particularly well in a mobile way. And Arsenal, therefore, were able to dominate whilst Liverpool played this shape in this manner. Liverpool then got on top and managed to play the better football, and in the second half they changed it. They went to something that was a much more traditional 4-4-2 to do two things. One, help Alexander-Arnold back here, and also secondly, get themselves into a situation where Fabinho didn't have as much ground to cover and wasn't expected to be shuttling around here. It therefore left Liverpool with much less of a threat. You see Sadio Mane run 40 yards just to get there, to get on the back end of something, as he nearly manages to do so. You see that Salah and Firmino are really left to admire this little box of four who can play round them all day because Liverpool are just sitting in. That's not a criticism of the manager. Liverpool were winning the game at that time. So he makes the decision, listen, what we've got will hold. We're not playing great stuff. The initial selection hasn't gone as well as I'd hoped. I've got a couple of footballers here struggling. We'll hang on for dear life. But that's how the game played out. Fair play to Arsenal. They showed real courage and played some very, very good football indeed. Liverpool never quite managed to get to grips with the task that was in front of them, but they played the game smartly, economically. They nearly got all 3 points. They may not have deserved them, but on the day, they focused, they knuckled down, they worked hard, but it was more graft than guile.
Okay, thanks to Neil. Yeah, we're going to have a chat about sort of Liverpool's controlling this game a little bit more then, and got some stats here just showing sort of the best passes in this game, if you like, and you have to go quite a way down to find a Liverpool player which sort of emphasises that it wasn't the best day for that type of thing. Xhaka there at the top, Mustafi, Holden, Torreira, Bellerin, and then Robertson's the highest performing Liverpool player with 40 successful passes out of 56 attempted. There's no one on that initial sheet there from the midfield. The best performing midfielder is arguably, well not arguably, it is James Milner on the day. We all know that Fabinho had a bit of a nightmare. That's been talked about quite a lot already, and I don't think we really need to go into it again. Wijnaldum as well is a bit anonymous, if we're all being honest.
Was it a nightmare, the Fabinho thing? I said in the ground I wasn't saying. He messes up early on, but I thought I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's something worth adding on the Fabinho point, which no one's really talking about, I don't think, which anyone can have a bad game. A new player can definitely have a bad game. In a game like that where he hasn't been in this, he had that face on him. I was chatting to Ben Jono yesterday saying, when you've played footy at any level, you know what it's like to be involved in a game where you just can't get to the pace of it, and you're knackered, and you're half a yard behind everything, and your face tells everyone, they're like, I can't do this. That's what he looked like to me at the elite level. But that's not the full story for me. The bigger story is, I often say this, it's the stuff that you can't see that people don't talk about that much. People love commenting on what they see. It's obvious. He's crap. Talk about that. And then we have the whole Fabinho Henderson thing, which goes on all the time. The bigger thing for me is he played 90 minutes and he got booked after about 60 or 70 and still played. Now that for me says there's a problem with your squad. because people are saying,
Said,
well, there's
I
no...
don't have another midfielder.
But that sounds ridiculous to me, because 2 seasons ago, Adam Lallana was a phenomenal midfielder in this Klopp system. He was absolute go-to man, favourite person to pick in that position. When Alden's already moved to 6, I'd have thought that's your easy move. Put Lallana where Fabinho is. He can press, he knows the shape, he knows the system. And for him not to come on, that all of a sudden says to me then, oh, okay, well, this squad isn't as good as we think it is. Because if he's not going to bring Shaqiri or Lallana into a midfield position, that means whenever we get 1 or 2 injuries, we're really exposed, which is the drop from City then.
There's another explanation that he doesn't think Fabinho was as bad as the rest of the world did. It's interesting what you say, because you saw it on telly, so they must have gone into Fabinho's face looking a bit sad and frightened a few times. So you don't see that at the game because you're further in the bit. I know I was literally counting his contacts and saying, I think his first challenge he loses out. He is behind and everyone winced a little bit. But then I noticed him nicking balls and winning a number of tackles throughout the course of the game.
The other week when we did it, I think it was Red Star, wasn't it? And he had phenomenal statistics for his duels. He's lost most of them at Arsenal.
Oh, has he? Yeah. Oh, right, okay.
So he does nick a few, as you say, but overall, there isn't really any stats to back up much positive about his performance.
Okay, there's a stylistic issue with him as well, and I didn't see the Red Star games, so it'd be interesting to watch that to see what his duels were like. But he has a tendency to hit the deck. When he's trying to win the ball back, he's on his arse. That doesn't work in this system. Because even if you win the ball, the whole point of winning the ball in this system is win it and go. And if you go on the deck and you miss the ball, well, now you're completely out the game. And that happened a few times.
Yeah, that's very true.
We're now a man down and you look so exposed with these systems. Guardiola and Klopp systems are great when everyone's doing what they need to do. When someone's out the game, you're just exposed.
I think what was interesting there was Klopp's comments afterwards, where he started off first having a go at the way Liverpool played and the formation, and then it moved into praising James Milner, who obviously scored the goal. So he says, you have a compact formation, you force Arsenal to pass the ball somewhere, that's pressing, and that's not complicated. The best way to do it is right from the first moment, then you build on that, but we didn't do it right from the first moment. That means there's a time that it's not there, and we all felt like, what the heck is here? Millie was the one who saw it first, and was quite, how can we say, not happy. Was animated, that's good, and that's how it is in the dressing room. There's a lot of men, a lot of testosterone. One is talking, that's me. But sometimes before I start talking, the boys have a few words, and that's all. And Millie is a proper leader. Then he went on to say, Millie's like wine, a very good red one. I'm not sure if Leeds is famous for wine. It's not me, no. He's getting better. I think you should buy all of the newspapers and read this. I'd like it if you wrote a story about James Milner. Good to hear that James Milner is a leader in the dressing room. I don't think that really comes as any surprise.
No.
Digging into his individual performance, and we haven't worked out a way we can put this on screen yet. We're not that posh.
Should I lift it up and take it over to the camera?
Walk all the way over, go here. But basically, that's Milner's heat map, and it's a bit mad. As in, he's basically all over the pitch. Yeah. That says to me, A, that he's having a go, but B, that again, that we didn't really have control of the situation, and he's fighting fires all over the pitch.
That looks like he's running around in circles in that.
That's a main area that
okay.
You know, it's hotter in
Hot
that area.
but cold in the middle.
That's it, mate. So 1 goal, 28 passes were accurate, 3 key passes, blah blah blah. But he was the only one really so he won 9 out of 11 duels. Talking of duels, so Milner was the most successful in midfield in terms of doing that job. But what you heard from Klopp there about him and about the way that he wasn't happy with the control of your life, is that a concern?
Yeah, it is, and that's what it looked like as well. Yeah. It just looked like we didn't have the aggression or hunger or appetite, and you do wonder about, is that psychological? Because that's what he's implying. But is it about legs? I mean, there's a fear with Klopp teams that there will be periods of drop-off. And it doesn't necessarily have to happen after 2 games in a week, because we have a 7-day game break here. But sometimes I think that fatigue can be in legs.
Yeah.
I think there are other occasions where this was an Arsenal team that was up for it. It had something to prove. It'd been on a long run.
You've got to give them some credit.
Yeah. They... no one was, they were getting positive. Everyone was behind the new manager, but there was some talk they'd not played anybody good, because when they had, they'd been beaten. And were they going to show up? So they made sure whatever else happened, no one was going to say they didn't show up. He probably pinned things on the wall about their reputation as being lily-livered Arsenal and all that kind of stuff.
And they started fast. They were straight in our faces. They were pressing us. The midfield, all of a sudden, their midfield, which to us, I don't think we've been talking about it much. We haven't been going, oh, Xhaka's great, isn't he? But he has one of the best games I've seen him play for Arsenal. I don't watch Arsenal all the time. But all of a sudden, you're like, yeah, you've got to give them and the manager some credit. They played well, didn't they? We don't do that enough sometimes, do we? Because we're Liverpool fans.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, well, Liverpool should just beat anyone who's put in front of them. But sometimes you've got to go, hang on, it was a good goal. The manager's done a decent job. Actually, they controlled the match, not us, really.
Well, I think we're all guilty of this. I'm definitely guilty of it. Like, going into this game, okay, we'll beat them.
Yeah.
Well, they've just won 11 out of 12 games. This is not the same Arsenal side that got turned over by City and Chelsea at the start of the season. And they've got a good manager and a load of good players. They're at home. And something else that doesn't really get talked about is the atmosphere sounded really good, because they kept having spells in the match where it was getting the crowd up. Emery's on the sidelines going crazy to get the crowd going. And in fairness, there wasn't any need to. Whenever I saw him doing that, I was like, the home crowd already sounds up, mate.
The only thing I thought, which is to our credit, and I think it's to the credit of this team this season, is when they were up Arsenal and they started fast, I think back to, say, 2 years ago where they started fast, where we end up winning, they create chance after chance, they get the penalty which they miss, they go in front in that game. They weren't making chances against us just for fun. A lot of it was huffing and puffing. In fact, at all stages of the game, it was aim. When they score and they come back into it, it's not really pressure, is it?
I think they have, after we score, I think they have 3 shots.
And this is a really important point to make, and it goes back to what the original question is. This is Arsenal away from home. So talk about what Klopp's saying about a draw away to Arsenal is always a good result. Well, a game away at Arsenal is always a tough game, and to only concede 1 goal against a team that's flying with those type of attacking players, and as Rob says, to not concede that many key chances, that's still all hugely positive and bodes well for the future, because at the end of the day, there aren't that many teams as good as Arsenal that you have to go and play.
If this was a Benitez team we were watching, this is some start.
Yeah.
This is Rafa's dream. Yeah. We look very, very solid, but whilst having a threat. Just not as much as we've used to been seeing.
I think that's the problem, is that if he'd have said, if Klopp had come out in the summer and said, right, so just so you're all aware before we go in to set expectations, we've created a really solid defence now, so we're going to do the first half of the season as a Rafa team, and then we're going to become a Klopp team after January, February, and we're going to start blowing teams away. We'd all be able to go, oh, okay, that's fine. But because we're just expecting the Klopp thing to happen all the time, and it's not, I think that's sort of
it's just not as much
destabilising everyone,
And it's the City thing as well. I wrote something on the site,
it is the City
which
thing.
is on the site there. You can have a read of that. And it is about how sort of what City are doing is spoiling our fun around what we're doing, really. And it was interesting that after I wrote that, I found some quotes from Klopp where he actually was asked about that. And the press said to him, do you need to ignore what City are doing? And he said, yeah, I do. And he said, I'm not interested in how many points City get. They've got 1 from us. If they get 89 more, I've got no influence on that, so I'm not interested now. And I think that's what he's got to keep saying. He's got to keep saying that to the players, because ultimately they're achieving something that, in the context of Liverpool and in the context of past Liverpool, is actually an achievement. It's just not the one we want, which is the actual title. But
in a lot of, I don't know, 9 out of 10 seasons, we've won 8 and drawn 3 out of 11. We're actually probably clear at the top of the league by 3 or 4 points, maybe at this stage. And we go to Arsenal and we draw and we maintain our position at the top of the league, and we nearly beat them. Nobody is even batting an eyelid, are they? They're just going, good, add on to the home banker next week, where we'll extend our lead further.
And the other side of that as well is, which we have mentioned in the past, and it's worth saying again now while heads are wobbling a little bit, this works for everybody else as well. So City might be this incredible team. People are talking about them being invincible. They're not. They got battered in the Champions League a few weeks ago. They drew with Wolves. They drew with us. But they're going at this pace, and they're only 2 ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So my mate had said sort of at the weekend, and I thought it's funny, because he said this is like a marathon race where we're like sprinting to keep up with them at the front. And I laughed at the time. I was like, yeah, that you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it the other way. That they're actually the ones.
They keep looking over the shoulder, absolutely, and fucking hell, they're still there.
And they're flying.
Yeah.
And the way that football works over the course of a season is you cannot maintain that. You will not carry on winning 6-5, 4-1 all season. So there is a counter argument that actually City can be the ones going. Pep might be in his back of his mind thinking, we're flying here, and these haven't clicked yet, and they're still only 2 points behind us. It's a bit concerning.
Well, yeah, I mean, the scenario is, fingers crossed, we can beat Fulham at the weekend and they lose the Manchester derby. we're top. Well, we're level with Chelsea, but we're suddenly a point clear of them.
There you go.
Yeah. And if you're sitting in City's camp, you're going, this happened last season. We lost to Man U, we lost to Liverpool in the same week, and it all started wobbling. What are these wobbles are now becoming something we do?
Yeah.
This is the fantasy anyway.
Liverpool are on course for 90 plus points right now, and if they end the season with that many points, wherever that takes us, I think that would be cause for celebration in itself, because Liverpool in 26 seasons have only breached 80 points 4 times, so that's where we are. There's plenty more to talk about. There's loads more on the Anfield app. There's free podcasts, there's subscription podcasts, there's Talking Reds, which is every weekday on the video channel. We'll be doing a post-match pint after Red Star, after Fulham. We'll be doing a preview show of Fulham as well. We'll be doing a second look on both of those matches as well. So loads of video, loads of podcast, loads of writing on the site, theanfieldapp.com. Keep watching, keep reading, keep listening. Up the fucking Reds.